Welcome to the 15th annual Nancy Latimer Convening on Youth and Children, hosted by the Start Early Funders Coalition. This year's theme is cultivating community. Listen well and act now.
Hello, and thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Tiffany Kong, and I'm the Program Officer at the St. Paul, Minnesota Foundation and co-chair of the Start Early Funders Coalition Learning and Research Committee.
And hello, I'm Carrie Zealand Johnson, Program Officer at the Greater Twin Cities United Way and coordinator of the Start Early Funders Coalition.
The Start Early Funders Coalition is a collaboration of more than 15 members of Minnesota's philanthropic community. We provide critical leadership and funding for research, program development, public policy, and grant making to improve early childhood efforts in Minnesota. We work collaboratively to equitably ensure every child in Minnesota is physically, socially, emotionally, and cognitively prepared for school and lifelong success. It is our mission to advance public policy and community support for affordable, accessible, high-quality care and education in Minnesota so that all children have a strong, equitable, and healthy start.
We leverage a number of events and activities like this one to bring awareness to issues and solutions, and also celebrate our collective success along the way. This year's theme is Cultivating Community. Listen well and act now. Before we begin, we would like to take some time for a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on Dakota lands in Minnesota, Okoche, land where the water reflects the sky or cloudy water. The land was ceded from the Dakota in the treaties of 1837 and 1851, and we acknowledge the complex and multi-layered history that includes violence and trauma. These are now the traditional ancestral contemporary lands of Indigenous peoples, and it holds great historical and spiritual significance, remaining sacred for many people. By offering this land acknowledgement, Greater Twin Cities United Way and Start Early Funders Coalition affirms a commitment to recognize and support and advocate for Indigenous peoples of the state of Minnesota and across the United States.
It's been another exciting and interesting year for early learning, and today we're here once again to honor the legacy of Nancy Latimer, early childhood advocate, mentor to many, and a community leader. Nancy would be so proud of the gains that we have made on behalf of young children in the tireless way so many of you are helping to improve the trajectory here in Minnesota for all children. The recent global pandemic makes it even more important for us all to think about our children and the families and their needs. Our state continues to be a leader in our nation in terms of early childhood learning and care. This success is due to no small part of early childhood advocates like Nancy and the thousands that she inspired.
We're here to celebrate Nancy Latimer by recognizing the work of advocates in our community who carry out her legacy through their work with and on behalf of children and families. We are thrilled to have the Latimer family online with us today. It is wonderful to have you all here to honor Nancy's memory, along with those who have advanced the early childhood field over the years. I'd like to acknowledge Nancy's husband, George, and the entire Latimer family and thank them for joining us. We'll hear from them later in the program. Let's take a moment to appreciate the fact that we have made a lot of gains in our legislature and philanthropic community by investing in our state's youngest children and making it a top bipartisan priority. Though we have made a lot of progress, it is important that we do not slow down or change course in our commitment to achieve successful outcomes for all of our children.
Start Early is excited to be actively working to support and leverage this important work to ensure the greatest and most sustainable impact. As advocates, it's important that we support our governor and our legislature in understanding the critical challenges facing too many of our young children and the long-term benefits to Minnesota's workforce, economy, and prosperity.
Now, I'd like to welcome our MC for today's event, Andre Dukes, Vice President of Family and Community Impact with the Northside Achievement Zone, also known as NAZ. Andre oversees the early childhood strategy, which focuses on ensuring that NAS scholars are ready for kindergarten through access to quality early learning centers, scholarships, screening, parent support and education, and advocacy. Throughout his career, he has learned a great deal about how experiences shape child behavior and how strong communities, environments, and supports can promote healthy development and prevent harmful behavior in children. Before joining NAS, Andre worked for several years as a community pastor and worked in partnership with Hennepin County and the City of Minneapolis on the issue of youth violence prevention. Welcome, Andre.
Thank you, Carrie and Tiffany, for the introduction and for kicking off today's awards. It is an honor to be part of this annual event commemorating the legacy of Nancy Latimer, whose work has shaped our field in such profound ways. Thank you to George, the Latimer family, and the Start Early funders for extending me this humbling opportunity. And thank you to everyone who has taken time out to celebrate the work of today's honorees. Now I'd like to hand it off to Nancy Joss, Director of Early Childhood with West Central Initiative, to share a little more about today's events.
Thank you, Tiffany and Carrie, for the great start to our gathering. Andre, thank you for your words and for joining us today. I want to extend a greeting to the Latimer family. It's wonderful that you can all be with us again this year, even though we have to be together virtually. We are really excited about today's agenda. A little later in the program, we will have the opportunity to hear from our panel with a focus on this year's theme, which is cultivating community, which is really all about listening well and acting now. As we work together within the context of families, community, and culture, we must ensure all children are provided the resources and supports necessary to thrive and experience lifelong success. At this time, I want to extend a special thanks to our speakers and guests who have agreed to join us this morning. Before we formally begin our program, I would also like to congratulate this year's award recipients and also take a moment to recognize past recipients of the Nancy Award. While we are gathered here today to honor several individuals and reflect on Nancy Latimer's legacy of leadership, let's also remember all those who have been honored in the past and draw inspiration from them as well. Throughout today's program, I encourage you to use social media using the hashtag Latimer21. That's spelled LATIMER 21 to tweet or post during and after our event.
Thanks, Nancy. As you can see, we have a memorable program lined up. And as we celebrate the contributions that have been made to our field, my hope is that we will continue to keep our children at the center of our thinking. As we all know, the pandemic has taken a toll on the developmental health and safety of our children. And as we adapt and adjust to society's new normal, we must consider the context we are creating for our youngest citizens. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Allison Corrado, Senior Program Officer with the Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota Foundation and co-chair of the Start Early Public Policy Committee, who will provide us with an update from the Start Early Legislative Committee.
Thank you, Andre. The Start Early Funders Coalition is so grateful for the many partners and advocates it takes to do the challenging work of systemic change. And we are fortunate to have champions in our state legislature that advocate for young children and their families. 2021 proved to be another challenging year for our state legislature as we continue to fight to create a stronger future for our children while addressing our current public health crisis and compounding issues rooted in structural inequities. Amidst all of this, though, we want to celebrate big wins from a big year for early childhood investment And we hope that you'll join us in celebrating significant increases to support families to access childcare and critical investments and policy changes made in the early childhood system. At the end of the session, our state legislature passed $500 million in new federal funding to support early childhood. $304 million of that was allocated to monthly grants that provide funding directly to childcare providers to help them through the pandemic. Over $100 million went towards increasing the childcare assistance program rates for providers serving low-income children, so parents are able to work or access education. And an additional $36 million went towards bringing affordable childcare to more working families immediately by addressing our childcare assistance program waitlists. Thanks to the dedicated advocacy of our Minnesota Initiative Foundation partners, we saw $3 million go to support sustaining and increasing childcare slots with grants to the Initiative Foundations. And we also won an additional $1.5 million in funding to support our unlicensed childcare providers. These are the family members, the friends, and the neighbors, or really the unsung heroes providing care behind the scenes with little to no recognition. $3 million was allocated to support additional home visiting initiatives. And lastly, there are critical investments, including $21 million to support childcare facilities and $3 million to support the workforce programs for early educators. So in addition to these funding increases, we also saw important policy changes that were made. And these included flexibility in the types of home visiting programs that are eligible to apply for funding. This ensures culturally, linguistically, and geographically diverse programs are able to meet the complex needs of families. We also saw the creation of an ombudsperson for family childcare providers and the creation of a childcare and early childhood education working group, which is going to assess our early childhood system across Minnesota and provide recommendations for improvement. Then lastly, we also saw the Dignity in Pregnancy and Childbirth Act established, as well as an extension for new parents to remain on Medicaid for 1 year postpartum. These are critical bills to address significant racial disparities in maternal health in our state. And while we were disappointed that we didn't see an increase in funding for Parent Aware scholarships this year, we did see a modest increase of $3.5 million to support the Parent Aware system and funding to support a Parent Aware validation study. The progress made and the work that we need to do to continue are the result of countless hours of hard work by parents, providers, and advocates from around the state. But at the end of the day, achieving public policy changes requires legislators willing to champion these proposals at the legislature, and parents and providers who share their experiences and their needs to legislators. So we are excited to take these wins and continue to advocate for additional support so that all children grow up with every opportunity that they deserve. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it back over to Andre.
Thank you, Allison, for that update. It is encouraging to know that there are additional resources that have been allocated to the support of children. And there's certainly more that we need to accomplish to ensure that every child in our state has access to quality early learning experiences. Now I'm pleased to introduce Denise Mayotte, Executive Director of the Sheltering Arms Foundation, co-chair of the Start Early Public Policy Committee, to present our Legislative Champion Awards.
Thank you, Andre. It's such a pleasure to present the Legislative Champion Awards to the legislators who helped make great things happen for children during the last legislative session. The first award goes to Senator Eric Pratt. Senator Pratt represents Prior Lake in the Southeast Metro Area, District 55. He's the chair of the Jobs and Economic Growth Committee and serves on the Taxes, Commerce, and Energy and Rules Committees. Senator Pratt authored $10 million in grants to childcare to increase the number of quality childcare providers. He also participated in last year's early childhood legislative briefing and moderated the panel. He's a parent of 2 children. Congratulations, Senator Pratt.
Hi, I'm Eric Pratt, and I'm here with Karen Fisher of Little Acres Montessori. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you to the Start Early Funders Coalition for recognizing me as a legislative champion. It's important to me because people like Miss Karen are entrepreneurs and important entrepreneurs in our communities. Not only do they help serve our kids, but they're starting new businesses that become integral. Miss Karen doesn't just run a business, she's part of our community. And you know what? I've known Miss Karen for over 20 years. My daughter was a student here, and she just brings us together as a family. I remember sleepover nights. Stone Soup Night was one of my favorite, when the kids read the story about Stone Soup and all the families brought something for the pot. Yeah. And the funding that we did in the Jobs Bill this last year will help people like Miss Karen and entrepreneurial women that want to become like Miss Karen and Little Acres Montessori, be successful. So thank you so much for this award. I really appreciate it.
Our next legislative champion is Senator Melissa Wickland. Senator Wickland represents Bloomington in the metro area. She serves on the Health and Human Services Finance and Policy Committee, the Human Services Reform Finance and Policy Committees, and the Technology and Reform Policy Committees. She authored bills for the DEED Early Childhood Grants, Family Friend and Neighbor Funding, CCAP rates, First Children's Finance, the Maternal Death Study, MFIP, Medical Assistance Postpartum Coverage Extension, the Licensed Family Child Care Peer Mentoring Program, Chemical and Mental Health Services Funding, and Early Childhood Learning and Child Protection Facility Grants. She's the parent of 2 children. Congratulations, Senator Wickland.
Hi, I'm Senator Melissa Wickland, and I'd like to thank the Start Early Funders Coalition for this recognition as a legislative champion. It is an honor to be given this award from an organization that has played such an important role in advocating for children and families in Minnesota and strengthening our early childhood care and education system. I appreciate receiving this award because it lets me know that my work to move policies, programs, and funding and resources forward is having a positive impact on children's, parents, and early childhood professionals' lives. I've learned more each year I've been in the Senate about how important the first years of children's lives are and the impact we can have on a child's life by providing access to high-quality early childhood experiences. It has given me a sense of urgency to keep striving for more resources and more attention to be devoted to strengthening our early childhood system. It was clear to me before the pandemic, but it is now even more reinforced that we need to greatly increase our investments in early childhood programs and services. We need to see to it that all providers are paid appropriately for the important work that they do, and we need to recognize disparities and work hard to develop a racially equitable system. I would like to thank Start Early Funders Coalition members for this recognition, and I'd also like to thank the people working every day in the field of early childhood who have been willing to teach me about their areas of expertise and the ways that we can strengthen our system. Thank you for all you do to serve children and families all across the state. Thank you.
Our next legislative champion this year is Representative Ruth Richardson. Representative Richardson represents the St. Paul area, District 52B. She's the chair of the Education Finance Committee and serves on the Commerce Finance and Policy, Education Finance, and the Transportation Finance and Policy Committees. Representative Richardson offered bills for the African American Babies Coalition Partnership and Grant and Integrated Care for High-Risk Pregnancy Grant, paid family leave, pre-K funding in the General Education Bill, Early Childhood Suspensions, and Dignity in Pregnancy and Childbirth Act. She's the parent of 2 children. Congratulations, Representative Richardson.
Good morning. I'm Ruth Richardson, State Representative for District 52B, representing Mendota Heights, Inver Grove Heights, Egan, and Sunfish Lake. Thank you to the Start Early Funders Coalition for recognizing me as a 2021 Legislative Champion awardee. Like the coalition, I believe all children should have an equitable opportunity to achieve optimal health and reach their full potential. This commitment reflects a long legacy. I come from a long line of kinship and relative caregivers, and I've been a foster parent along with most of my 7 siblings. And we all understand the power of early childhood education. It is one of the most critical foundations for the best outcomes later in life. In my time at the legislature, one of the bills that I'm most proud of getting across the finish line is the bill that I chief authored to end the harmful practice of preschool suspensions. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my sister reps, Representative Rena Moran and Hoden Hassan. And I'd also like to thank Speaker Hortman, Representative Dave Pinto, and former Representative Lori Halverson for all of their support, all of their advice, and all of their work to help get that bill across the finish line. We know that Minnesota has much work to do to address the persistent and unacceptable educational disparities that we're seeing in this state. There are real children and real families behind the data that are experiencing that pain. We will never be as prosperous as a state as we can be until we close these opportunity gaps. I look forward to continuing to work in collaboration with families, the coalition, and other advocates to build an early education system that works for all. Thank you again for this incredible honor, and I'm looking forward to working with you.
Our final legislative champion is Representative Liz Olson. Representative Olson represents the Duluth area, District 07B. She authored bills improving access to midwifery support, the Duluth Children's Museum funding, the Minnesota Initiative Foundation funding, and the Greater Minnesota Child Care Facility and Provider grants. Representative Olson is the parent of 1 child. Congratulations, Representative Olson.
Hi, I'm State Representative Liz Olson, and I am the mom of a 5-year-old and the daughter of a 76-year-old. So I just want to say a personal debt of gratitude for all you are doing to make sure everyone in our community can thrive and get the care they need no matter the season of their life, and for prioritizing what we need for those early learners. It's a huge need throughout our state, and that's why I was really glad to carry legislation this session to expand access to quality, affordable childcare. And it was great to partner with a number of you to bring the right people into the room to solve these seemingly complex problems. But when we have the right people in the room, the right stories to tell, we can get it done. And so I was really proud to work with all of you, both as a chief author on some really great legislation and co-author other pieces, because we know that communities across our state need us to do the things that provide the care that families need. And so I am just incredibly honored to be a recipient of this award, but more so, I am just incredibly grateful to be a part of this team of people that gets work done at the Capitol and gets results for Minnesotans. So thank you so much for this, and thank you so much for your work, and I look forward to working together this upcoming session.
Thank you to all of you for the tireless work you did for both your children and all of Minnesota's young children this session and for your entire careers. Though this group of legislators come from different parts of the state and are representing rural and urban districts, their commitment to early learning is a testament to the bipartisan nature of our work supporting early learners.
This year, we added a new category of awards, Organization Advocacy Champion Award. To honor the important role that organizations and both their internal and external leaders can play in advancing equitable policies and practices in the field of early childhood care and education. This year, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge the leadership of 2 individuals with regards to their strong advocacy within and on behalf of 2 organizations. The first is a posthumous recognition of former Senator Jerome Jerry Hughes and the founding championing that he did on behalf of Minnesota's early childhood family education, better known as ECFE. He was most proud of his accomplishments as senator with securing the funding and passing legislation to start the first early childhood and family education programs. In the mid-70s, most state governments were not yet making policy connections between the care and education of young children from birth to age 5 and their performance in elementary school and beyond. Ahead of its time, the 1974 Minnesota legislature, as a result of Senator Hughes' fierce advocacy, began the piloting of ECFE with appropriation for 6 local programs, which has since then grown to a statewide program that is within almost all of our school districts. Senator Chuck Uygur said, "Jerry Hughes taught me what it meant to truly serve your community. He was a lifelong, passionate advocate for education and always strove to improve the system." Today, we respectfully honor this important legacy of the late Senator Jerry Hughes. And in his memory, we dedicate our early childhood education advocacy champion work. The second awardee of Organization Advocacy Champion Award is Cindy Croft Bachman, founder of the Center for Inclusive Childcare, or CICC. Cindy founded the Center for Inclusive Childcare in 1995 and was its executive director for 24 years. The CICC promotes inclusion of children with special needs in community settings through technical assistance, resources, and professional development opportunities, which now includes health and safety and infant toddler services. They currently have about 30 coaches supporting early childhood providers across the state of Minnesota, and this has resulted in children being retained in programming rather than expelled from them. Cindy is a trainer, mentor, and coach to countless center-based and family child care providers throughout Minnesota. She has authored books and created develop MN trainings on children's mental health, caring for children with exceptional needs, and more. Ann Bailey, Director of Center for Early Education and Development at the University of Minnesota, who nominated her, wanted to acknowledge Cindy's lifelong commitment to the field of early childhood, but most of all, Cindy's innovative work as seen in the Center for Inclusive Childcare that was years ahead of its time. I have had the privilege of working alongside Cindy on some of these projects over the last 20 plus years. I have personally and professionally benefited from them and from her mentorship as a trainer, a coach, and as a parent, learning to support my own children with exceptional needs. Thank you, Cindy, for the work you have done to champion young children through your vision of organizational advocacy, and congratulations.
Hi, I want to start by thanking the Start Early Funders Coalition for awarding the Center for Inclusive Childcare the 2021 Organizational Champion Award. It is with great honor that I accept this award on behalf of the Center for Inclusive Childcare. I am the founder of the CICC, but its success is really due to the passion and commitment of so many early childhood champions. I began my work around the time that the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed into law, and it really was a time of optimism and hope. The CICC embraced that hope in its mission to ensure that all children were included in all community settings. I have always been driven by the core belief that inclusion is simply the right thing to do. The CICC has served Minnesota's children and child care providers for more than 20 years with training, resources, and coaching. Our work has always been to help improve quality child care settings for all kids, but especially those with disabilities. I want to thank the Minnesota Department of Human Services and the Minnesota Department of Education for their support from day one. I also want to thank the current staff of the CICC and their executive director, Priscilla Weigel, for continuing to grow this good work. I'd like to thank my husband, Don, for being such a great cheerleader for me and my children who really grew up alongside the CICC. Most of all, I hope for a world where our grandchildren will experience tolerance, inclusion, and belonging as simply the norm. Again, thank you so much for this award.
Congratulations to all of the Legislative Champion awardees and the Organization Advocacy Champion awardees. Thank you for your commitment to early childhood. One thing that stood out to me about all of our awardees is how important it is for organizations and our legislators to collaborate and work together to develop solutions to fund what works and what is needed for the community. Now I'd like to invite Carrie Zeeland Johnson to present our Parent and Provider Advocacy Champion Awards.
Start Early values parents and providers and recognizes how important it is to amplify their voices to advance early childhood outcomes in the areas of public policy and learning and research. Being a parent and an early childhood care and education professional can be a thankless job. We want you to know we hear you, we see you, and we appreciate you all. I'd like to announce the first recipient of the Provider Advocacy Champion Award, Candace Deal Bartel. Candace is the owner and founder of Cultivate Mankato, a child development and resource center that creates opportunities for children to engage with their community and create meaningful relationships that cultivate a sense of belonging. She founded Cultivate Minnesota, a nonprofit advocacy group dedicated to promoting awareness within early childhood programs and family service organizations. Candace built Cultivate Mankato from the ground up to create jobs and address the growing childcare shortage. It added an additional 149 licensed childcare slots to her community. Cultivate Minnesota has implemented an awareness campaign to amplify key advocacy messages, and she is also a parent of young children too. Jamie Bonzik, her nominator, called her a true visionary with the knowledge, skills, and ability to turn her thoughts into action. She is an asset to the Mankato community as a businesswoman. She is an inspiration in the field of early childhood education and care. We thank you for being a champion and being an advocate. Congratulations, Candace Deal Bartel.
Hi everyone, my name is Candace Deal Bartel, and I am so excited to be here with you today accepting the Start Early Funders Coalition 2021 Provider Award on behalf of Cultivate Mankato. This award is so special because I think it validates the work that we have been doing at Cultivate for early education and creating and cultivating inclusive experiences for children to grow and thrive. More importantly, it is a celebration of the work that we are all doing collectively to engage with the early education community and care for children across the state of Minnesota. So we are just really thrilled that we can contribute to that space. We want to thank those who went ahead of us and kind of paved the way in the work that we're doing. We're learning so much about early education and how to create unique experiences for children and families. And I'm really grateful for the work being done currently in the field, but also what has been done and paved the road ahead of us. So at Cultivate, we have a team of dedicated and committed individuals that I really want to celebrate and thank right now. Without their dedication to early education, we wouldn't be able to serve 180 plus families within our community, and that's a huge effort. And so really this award honors the work that they do every day, and we couldn't be more thrilled to celebrate that. Finally, I want to thank all of you in the work that you are doing in your communities in raising the bar for early education and really making that a priority within your communities. It can be really tough out in the field, especially now with unique challenges that we're all facing. But just know at the end of the day that you are doing an excellent job in being able to care for and educate young children. Have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for this honor.
I'd like to announce the second recipient of the Provider Advocacy Champion Award, the West Central Minnesota Child Care Center Directors Association. This association is comprised of 15 leaders from over 12 child care organizations throughout the West Central Minnesota region. For over 25 years, this one-of-a-kind group of center directors meets monthly and has dedicated their heart and souls to supporting each other, solving problems, and advocating for the field of early childhood education. They have been a key resource to help new center directors navigate their roles and rallied behind veteran directors to stay the course during difficult times. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the Directors Association was a lifeline to each other, offering encouragement to keep on keeping on, and crediting their support from keeping their program doors open. The Directors Association is a powerful advocacy force. They meet annually with Minnesota State Licensing about licensing updates and give input to shape licensing changes. They visit with state and federal legislators to ensure childcare is accurately depicted, and the concerns of early childhood field are at the forefront of policymakers' minds. Writing letters, requesting childcare emergency grants, increased scholarships, and CCAP reimbursement rates, and testifying on behalf of early childhood educators as essential workers, many of whom are women who never left the pandemic and kept on keeping on, so parents could work and children could continue to grow. Nancy Joe said, "They embody persistence and tenacity because of many of the policies they are advocating for, including reopening Rule 3 to modernize our state's regulations. Has been on their agenda for years, and they keep making their asks, celebrating their wins, and then getting back into the ring to push for the changes they have yet to accomplish. Their authenticity about the joys and challenges of their jobs, which is their calling, makes it possible to solve problems together and practically. Thank you and congratulations, West Central Minnesota Child Care Center Directors Association."
Hello, I'm Sue Stafke. I am the proud chair of the most amazing Early Childhood Center Directors Association in the state of Minnesota, the West Central Minnesota Child Care Center Directors Association. We are so happy and excited and proud to win this prestigious award in the field of early childhood. I don't accept this award on my behalf because it is not about me. It is about this amazing group of professionals that meet together on a monthly basis. They've been meeting for over 25 years. We have advocated for licensing changes. We have advocated for legislative changes. We have advocated for the rights of children and for families, and for the rights of our staff to be called professionals and treated as such. I share this award very humbly with Kay Heydrich, Angie Oshman, Nicole Flick, Lacey Hoppy, Tracy Gustafson, Jenny Johnson, Jamie Neppel, Ashley Griffin, Carrie Pennis, Mary Rotter, Sarah Beach, Peggy Mortensen, and Heather Quava. I can't imagine going through a position such as I've had without these friends and colleagues next to me. We're there to celebrate with each other. We can laugh, we can cry, and we celebrate. At the same time, if anybody falls, there's always somebody to pick them up. I want to thank you so much to West Central Initiative and to Parent Aware for recognizing the service that all of this group has provided in our region. Nothing could make me happier or proud to call these lovely women my friends and my colleagues. Thank you for this award, and thank you to the directors for making my life much better, much richer, just by knowing all of you. Thank you so much.
This next award personally brings me joy to announce because I too began my career in education as a parent advocating on behalf of my own children. Today, we will be awarding the Parent Advocacy Champion Award to Rashina Bickham. Rashina is a parent of 2 young children and is a fierce advocate for her children and others, as she has also worked in early childhood care and education for her entire career. For the last 7 years, she has used her skills to make Catholic Charities Northside Child Development Center a safe, welcoming place for children to thrive and grow, including her own. With the heart of a mother and a teacher, Rashina is driven to be a longtime champion for all children and families. She is a leader in her North Minneapolis community and in her role as program manager at Northside Child Development Center, advocating for social justice, high quality care, and fortifying relationships between providers and parents. Whether she is helping to teach about historical racial justice during Black History Month or going the extra mile during the pandemic, she does it all with excellence. Rashina is always willing to lend her voice to advancing early childhood care and education in the state of Minnesota. She has testified before the legislature numerous times on behalf of public policy that supports both parents and providers. Together with other teachers and parents, she has met with various legislators and with Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, championing the importance of childcare on behalf of her children and others' children. Her colleague who nominated her, Elizabeth Leiden of Catholic Charities Northside Child Development Center, believe Rashina is an unsung hero who is bold and courageous in all that she does. Thank you for being an advocacy champion, and congratulations, Rashina.
My name is Rashina Bickham, and I want to say thank you to Start Early for the 2021 Parent Award. I am truly thankful and I'm very grateful. This award means to me, as a parent and as a caregiver, we strive so hard to educate our children and just to have them believe in themselves and believe that they can do anything and everything they put their minds to. Watching my mom come home every day from her job, which is in early child care as well, and just seeing the excitement in her eyes made me want to be a part of that as well as when I got older. And just to be able to help teach other children as well as my own is awesome. And I'm excited to share this award with my family. They will be so happy. Sometimes I feel that child care centers and workers are not acknowledged enough. And so every chance that I get, and hope I can still get in the future, I am always willing to advocate for our children as well as my children as a parent and as a caregiver. Say thank you to Catholic Charities Northside Child Development Center and the amazing team of beautiful individuals that I work with daily, who we are an awesome team who come in every day devoted to teaching children and making sure that the children that we serve are getting the best early education we can possibly give them. Thank you to Start Early as well for this award, and I am very grateful and appreciative. Thank you once again.
Congratulations to our parents and provider advocacy champion awardees. We know that parents are the first and primary teacher in the lives of children. And these past couple of years has made it clear that early childhood providers are essential to the well-being of us all. Our society functions better when there is a strong partnership between parents and providers. And it is imperative that these voices be elevated in our systems as we think about the future of a healthy society. I would now like to introduce someone who has also spent a lifetime working to make life better for Minnesotans. It is my honor to invite George Latimer to say a few words honoring Nancy Latimer's legacy. Please join me in welcoming former Mayor of St. Paul, George Latimer.
When Nan got the Scribner Award, all the kids went out to San Diego with us, and she blew the whole $10,000 on the kids, just like her, you know. But when she spoke, she said to the assemblage that to do the right job for all of our children, then we have to have a good heart to start with, but a good head that thinks about good outcomes and measures them. And so it has to be head and heart. And I'll never forget that. And that was Nancy. When we planned this program, or they asked me to help them, I thought about how Nan would love it, because we're going to hear from the kids and the grandchildren, and who better to tell us who the real Nancy was than our kids. And also it means I don't talk as much, and I think she might like that too.
Greetings from Nancy's family.
Hi, I'm Faith, Nancy's daughter. I just want to show everybody, if you can see it. This is one of my favorite photos of Mom with her two first grandchildren, Philip and Rosalind. I think you can see it there. And they all look so happy. And
Yes.
that's what I most remember about her, is her feeling about her grandkids.
Hi, I'm Philip Anthony. I'm Nancy's first grandson. And the thing I will always remember and cherish about my grandma the most is her love and compassion. And I always try to take that with me every single day and try to give that to others that she gave to me.
What I remember about my mom is how dedicated she was always, about her work. When she first worked as a program officer, somebody had applied for a grant, and I think misunderstanding the purpose of the grant indicated they needed a sewing machine. I must have been in about third grade. I remember she made our clothing at the time on that sewing machine, and she gave it to whoever that was that asked the foundation for a sewing machine. That's just the kind of person she always was.
Hi, I'm George, son of Nancy. And I just remember my mom as being the most giving person ever to everyone around her. And she showed us all the greatness of helping each other.
Hello, I'm Rosalind. I'm one of Nancy's grandchildren. And I remember how much my grandma cared for and loved the garden. She showed me that all life is important.
My name is Claire, and I'm one of Nancy's grandchildren, and in honor of her, I bake banana bread every other weekend.
Goodbye, and remember the children. Wow. Thank you so much to the Latimer family for that fun and inspiring greeting. This is truly a moment of celebration. And now it's that special part of our program where we present the esteemed Nancy Award. I'd like to pass it back to Denise to present the award at this time.
Thank you, Andre. This truly is a high point of this event. I am so excited to announce that the first of our two Nancy Award nominees is our esteemed Start Early colleague and friend, Lynn Haglin, nominated by Tony Surdich and several others. Lynn Haglin is the recently retired Vice President and Kids Plus Director of the Northland Foundation. Her visionary thinking, boundless optimism, and patient persistence has made a profound impact throughout Minnesota for the past 3 decades. Anyone who meets with Lynn quickly realizes that this has not been just a job, but a passion project. Lynn has put in countless hours and miles to ensure that community members of all ages and walks of life would have a seat at the table and the opportunity to share their story. At the heart of every initiative, every interaction were Lynn's twin guiding principles. Community knows best, and respectful relationships are a key to any successful effort. Lynn makes people feel heard, respected, and appreciated. Lynn's gift for seeing the possibilities and finding a way to bring them to life has resulted in a tremendous array of programming to improve the well-being of children, youth, and families, and older adults. Her contributions are too many to name. Here are just a handful. Lynn has led in the creation of 57 community-based coalitions, 26 Kids Plus communities, 12 early childhood coalitions, age-to-age sites, and the Duluth-Proctor-Hermantown Thrive Initiative. She's provided leadership to help launch the statewide early care and education collaborations of the 6 Minnesota Initiative Foundations to launch the Minnesota Early Childhood Initiative in 2003 and the statewide Thrive Initiative. She's served on numerous local, regional, and state task forces and committees. She's designed model programs replicated and recognized at the state and national levels to support children and youth from birth to adulthood and foster intergenerational connections that tap the talents and skills of older adults. Lynn helped raise and administer $36 million and leverage $60 million more to support and sustain programs that help people of all ages thrive. She represented her region at the state and national levels, including serving on Governor Walz's Children's Cabinet Advisory Council and the Start Early Funders Coalition, and presenting to audiences at numerous national conferences. She engaged thousands of community members, funding partners, and program partners to make her region a better place to grow up, live, work, and grow older. Thank you, Lynn, for your many years of advocacy and work on behalf of Minnesota's youngest children, along with the unwavering dedication, influence, and outstanding contributions to the education and well-being of our children. You exemplify the legacy of the late Nancy Latimer and the true spirit of the Nancy Award.
I am honored and thrilled to receive a Nancy Award. I want to start by acknowledging Nancy Latimer and her commitment and work on behalf of Minnesota's youngest children. I was fortunate to have had the opportunity to get to know Nancy through her work at the McKnight Foundation and as a member of the Early Childhood Funders Network. She was an amazing leader who brought together foundation and business leaders along with policymakers to help build their understanding of the emerging research on early childhood brain development and its potential long-term impact on young children. She led the conversation about the need to invest in young children in order to help ensure their success in learning and in life. Early childhood has gained more attention and garnered more resources since those early efforts, and I view Nancy as the catalyst for the investments made in young children since that time. I want to give a special greeting to George Latimer, Nancy's husband, and the Latimer family. When I started my career as a kindergarten teacher, I was 22 years old, barely aware that I was an adult. I served approximately 52 children in my 2 classes each day. As I looked into the eyes of those children, I realized fairly quickly that each child arrived with his or her own hopes and dreams, and a strong faith in me as the adult who would encourage and guide them on their learning journey. The noted psychologist Yuri Bronfenbrenner said, "What every child needs most is someone who is crazy about him or her." I decided that while these children or any children were in my care, that I would be the one who was crazy about them. I would cherish and respect them as if they were my own and do the very best I could to help them on their learning journey. This has served as the philosophy and foundation for my work. While at the Northland Foundation, I was committed to creating Kids Plus programs that would make life better for children and youth, giving them quality opportunities and connecting them with caring adults. I was thrilled when our programs expanded in 2003 to focus on our youngest children, particularly our work building early childhood coalitions in Northeast Minnesota, increasing availability of quality childcare, and becoming the area administrator of Minnesota Early Learning Scholarships. A number of you have probably heard me say this before. If you average it out, every 8 minutes in Minnesota, a baby is born, and we have a new opportunity to contribute to the well-being of each of these children. They have faith in us as adults that we will truly care and support them, not just for the first years of their life, but as they grow to adulthood. I don't think our work will ever be done when we can say all children have what they need. So we must continue to rally communities, focus attention on the needs of children and youth, and garner support for programs that will help them reach their full potential and ultimately fulfill their hopes and dreams. The investments we make now in children will pay off forever for them and for all of us. Children, whether they are ours or someone else's, they are our greatest treasure and most important legacy. I want to thank all who've been partners in this work over the years, to the foundations that have helped me support early childhood initiatives and made many wonderful projects and programs available to families. Also, I want to thank my Minnesota Initiative Foundation colleagues and partners who played an important role in our joint early childhood efforts. And I also want to thank the policymakers, state and business leaders for your commitment in helping make early childhood a priority. I would be very remiss if I didn't recognize and thank all of the people who are dedicated to serving young children and their families in various roles every day in communities throughout Minnesota. Thank you to my colleagues at the Northland Foundation and the early childhood coordinators in our 7-county region of Northeast Minnesota who nominated me for the Nancy Award. And very sincere and special thanks to my colleagues who are members of the Start Early Funders Coalition for this honor and for many amazing years of partnership. I am so appreciative.
I'm delighted to announce that our second Nancy Award winner is our esteemed colleague, Nedra Robinson, nominated by Jane Kretzmann and Sandy Heidelman. Nedra Robinson began her early childhood career by starting a child care center for infants and toddlers in the Rondo neighborhood of St. Paul. Despite advice that she might lose money through this venture, she rented space from a church and successfully served children and families from that neighborhood. Nedra has a Master of Education from Concordia and has trained hundreds of early childhood students from across the state and around the world through Concordia College and St. Paul College. She consults and trains extensively on topics regarding early childhood education, multicultural education, diversity, trauma, and cultural issues. Nedra was on the team that developed and delivered Cultural Beginnings, Minnesota's first anti-bias curriculum in the 1990s. She was a founding member of the African American Babies Coalition, whose work she supported for more than a decade. Nedra worked with the staff of the YWCA to publish their anti-bias curriculum through Red Leaf Press. In 2013, she joined Simpson Housing Services as the Senior Early Childhood Specialist for the Young Parent Program. She supervises a team that uses a home visiting model to promote the healthy development of young children and their families who are experiencing homelessness. Nedra's lifelong work is an expression of her dedication to racial justice, her commitment to education, and her belief in the strength, power, and resilience of families and children. Nedra is a member of the Executive Committee of the Minnesota Coalition for Targeted Home Visiting and a member of the Prenatal to 3 Coalition. A longstanding advocate for very young children and their families, Nedra meets frequently with public agency staff and policymakers and testifies before legislative committees. Nedra is a change agent. Her outcomes are present in the lives of people who have the opportunity to learn from her direct involvement with families and agency staff, her work as an educator, her advocacy, and from her example. This is long-haul work that requires endurance and authenticity. Nedra possesses both. Her truth is grounded in life experience, and she's a steady advocate as a voice for communities that face racial and geographic disparities. Nedra Robinson truly embodies the values of Nancy Latimer: unwavering dedication to the well-being of young children through program innovation, public policy, and mentorship. Congratulations, Nedra.
I don't even know how to begin to say thank you for this wonderful honor. I feel like this is a reward for doing what I love and what I have an extreme passion for, and that is working for the benefit of children and their families. This honor is not about me, it's about us. It's about all the children we've touched in some way, and it's about their families. But there is so much more work to do to ensure that all children have safe, healthy lives. My journey working in the early childhood field has had many twists and turns, and I've been involved in a lot of different ways, but I've never been alone, not for 1 minute. I have always had partners in this work, and many of you with me by my side. Samira and Sharon, Phyllis and Jim and Nancy, Katie, Marisol, Jane and Sandy. I could go on and on. There are so many people who share my passion for children who have supported me, worked with me, and helped me grow in this field. I say thank you to all of you. I truly appreciate that there are those of you who feel I am worthy of this honor. Thank you. And a shout out to my Simpson family, who I love.
A huge congratulations to Lynn Haglin and Nidra Robinson on this important recognition. Your work and dedication to the lives of children and families has been profound and has given us a roadmap that we can all follow and learn from. At this time, I'd like to welcome Bao Phi, a spoken word artist and writer, to share a few passages from his children's book, A Different Pond. Bao's poems and essays are widely published in numerous publications, including Screaming Monkeys, a spoken word revolution redux. His first children's book, A Different Pond, received 6-starred reviews and won multiple awards, including a Caldecott honor, an Ezra Jack Keats honor, Asian Pacific American Librarian Association Award for Best Picture Book, the Minnesota Book Award for Picture Books, and the Charlotte Zolotow Award for Excellence in Children's Book Writing. Please welcome Bao.
Hello. I'm thankful to the Start Early Funders Coalition and the Nancy Latimer Awards for this opportunity to share a little of my experience and engagement with early education. Long story short, I grew up the youngest child in a large, economically poor Vietnamese refugee family, coming directly from the war to the Phillips neighborhood of South Minneapolis. Now, since we were poor, we couldn't really afford toys or anything so frivolous. So really libraries became my favorite destination. It was a great way to feed my curiosity about the world, not to mention a great place to hide from bullies, racist or otherwise. As I grew up, my curiosity about the world and the people around me grew, and I was glad to learn about a great many different people and communities through my education, as well as actually through community work. However, sadly, I found that there was a lack of Asian American history and issues and presence in any of our history books or discussions about social justice or the world. And this was very confusing to me. You know, I'm a Vietnamese refugee boy, new to this country, and we face so much struggle and hostility. I didn't know how to make sense of it all. And I didn't know how to think or talk about these issues and these things and process the bigotry and the resentment and the racism that we faced. I'm going to fast forward a lot to when I became an adult. I've been a spoken word poet for many, many years, and my partner at the time and I decided to have a child. And, you know, when we had a child, one thing, we're a bookish family. So we, you know, read books to our child every single night, you know, and again, it was great for our child to learn about different people, different families, different cultures of people all over the world. But there was still not a lot of Asian American stories, not a lot of Asian American characters, especially not Southeast Asian working class refugees families represented in books for kids, especially the struggle of people like my parents' generation, who I feel are particularly invisible. You know, I feel like working class Vietnamese refugees from my parents' generation are particularly invisible. So I wrote a book, a picture book about it called A Different Pond. And it really was because I wanted not just my child, but other kids to know the story of both struggle and also perseverance and joy, really. And I'm going to just show a couple pages from that book here. So this is A Different Pond. It was illustrated by a Vietnamese American artist from the Bay Area named T. Bui. And I'll just skip. As you can see, the illustrations are beautiful. And this book is very loosely based on fishing trips my father and I would take very early. And we didn't fish for sport. We fished mostly for food. You know, it helped put food on the table when I was young. And here's a part where the streetlights look brighter and the roads aren't so busy before the sun comes up. Dad turns on the heater and tells me stories. A kid at my school said my dad's English sounds like a thick, dirty river. But to me, his English sounds like gentle rain. And so it was really important for me to not only render the very multiracial, multicultural neighborhood that we grew up in, but also to address directly what perhaps is not often revealed about Asian refugee families is that, you know, there are facets of the society that are very hostile towards us, and that can create a lot of hurtful feelings and shame. And I believe that kids are going to encounter that, unfortunately, and it's our job to prepare them for that, you know, and to let them know that if you're different, that's okay. You're beautiful. You come from a legacy of struggle, and I think that having, you know, teaching kids about difficult things early on is just so critically important. And that's really why I write children's books. So, you know, A Different Pond is about, you know, a working class refugee family. My second children's book is about a young girl with two Asian American moms who gets bullied. And my third book is about a duck that wanders into a very multiracial neighborhood, but is really a meditation on deportation and belonging. This is why I write children's books, and it's why I believe we should continue to be engaged and rigorous in our attempts at early education. Thank you.
Thank you, Bao, for your advocacy to increase diversity in children's literature and for sharing a portion of your book with us. Bao has given us a personal example of what it means to be marginalized in society and how storytelling can help us reframe narratives that are demeaning so that we can embrace difference. Community is about appreciating the lived experiences of those around us and celebrating our collective value. Let us now turn our attention to the central theme of today's event, community. Listen well and act now. Start Early is committed to equity and in the past few years has made renewed grassroots efforts to lean in, listen well, and learn about ways to advocate and activate agency. Today's panel discussion will highlight the collaborative work and recommendations put forth in a new report created by community members and community partners, including parents and providers. Please join me in welcoming Betty Emerita, who will kick us off with an overview of this topic, and then we'll be moderating our panel, leading an insightful, thought-provoking discussion.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome, panelists. As a coalition, Start Early is committed to amplifying the voices of parents and providers across our state. Toward this end, Start Early was an early supporter of Voices and Choices concept of a community solutions fund for children and families, focusing on equity for Black, Indigenous, and families of color. It was a co-funder of a 2015 Voices and Choices report that made this recommendation. Today, I'm happy to say that the Community Solution Funds for a Healthy Child Development not only exist, but has funded 22 projects. This unique fund puts Minnesota in a leadership position among states grappling with equity issues. As the name implies, the fund supports solutions to challenges that are identified and acted upon by communities themselves. A report on the fund, its purpose, and the profound opportunities it offers has just been released. It's available online, and we hope you will take the opportunity to read it. It's user-friendly and full of useful information, and it suggests some ways that you can act now to impact the lives of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, children, and families for the benefit of us all. The report is called the Community Solutions Fund for Healthy Child Development, a new tool for equity. You'll find a link to the report on the Start Early Funders website, as well as the Voices and Choices website. We have today a deeply experienced panel who helped contribute to this report. They will offer their insights today and give you a taste of their experiences with the Community Solutions Fund. Their experiences and dedication to local community-based solutions are profound and ongoing. They are deep listeners and experienced change makers in their communities with a small c and a capital C. They are also parents, aunties, uncles, and surrogate grandpas. Our first panelist is May Losloso. May is Community Engagement Director for the Children's Defense Fund, Minnesota, a member of the Community Solutions Fund Advisory Council, and a member of the Voices and Choices for Children Steering Committee. May is also mother of the sweetest 16-month-old little baby boy who has participated in many Zoom calls. Adekunse Haley Olson. Adekunse is coordinator of parent and adult programs, Ojibwe Motadida Ug, Ojibwe Immersion Academy, with the Fond du Lac Tribal and Community College in Cloquet, Minnesota. Giovanni Ford. Giovanni is founder and executive director of the Network for the Development of Children of African Descent, a culturally based family education center based both in St. Paul and Minneapolis. So, our first question for May. May, speaking as a member of the Community Solutions Fund Advisory Council, what are the goals of the fund?
Thanks, Betty. It's great to be here with everybody. So as an advisory council member, we really looked at three main goals. So the first is to improve child development outcomes for American Indian children and children of color, prenatal to grade 3, and also their families. The second is to reduce racial disparities in children's health and development. And the third is to promote racial and geographic equity. We know that Minnesota's demographic has been changing, and American Indians and people of color are not just located in cities. There are various communities across the state that also need that support. So there really is enormous strength in community-based solutions, and communities have identified those themselves. And it's really an issue of self-determination, right? Those who are closest to the problem are really closest to the solutions. And this is a way to give resources for them to really look at the issues that are going on in their communities.
Thank you, May. Adekunse, describe your organization's project that the Community Solution Fund supports and how it relates to equity.
So I'm working with Ojibwe Motarida Oma Gitiki Manang, and in the past couple of years, we started Gokonani Ngaindawat, which is our tri-generational Ojibwe immersion language nest. And this is located up in Fond du Lac, Minnesota. And with our language nest, we're really bringing together our families again, and starting, with ages 0 to 3, going, or 0 to 5, going with their parent or guardians and our elder first speakers. So we're getting that tri-generational bond through our program. And a big part of it is just reclaiming who we are and living our lives as Indigenous people, as Anishinaabe people, and being able to bring our babies up in the language again, right? Because we had so much taken over the years. And so in the aspect of equity, that's really at the core of what we're doing, right? It's an act of system change. It's an act of social justice when we're bringing our language home, our culture home, back to our little ones and bridging that gap, you know, not only helping our little ones get their language and culture and be confident in their identity, but we're healing our parent or guardians who are in that gap. And then we're working with our elder free speakers, and they're part of that healing as well. And MDH has been a huge part of this process with access to this funding and acting as a partner and coming into our space with a open approach, right? Not coming in saying, okay, this is what we're gonna do. But they came in and they say, here, we have these resources to offer you all. How can we work as a partnership? What can we do to help you to move your program forward and move your community forward? And so it's been really amazing to have access to these funds and work with MDH and continue this system change works and create this partnership with the state. Miigwech.
That's very exciting, Adikun, and it expands the worldview of us all. Great. Giovanni, same question. Describe your organization's project that the Community Solution Fund supports and how it relates to equity.
Well, thank you, Sister Betty. Hotep all, it is truly an honor and a privilege to be a part of the portfolio of the Community Solutions Fund. Our project is called Healthy Homes, Healthy Families, Healthy Schools, and Healthy Communities. Our goal is to support the healthy development of our children. And what our project really gets down to is rethinking what does it mean to support the healthy development of our children. We have come to understand that in order for our children to be healthy, they have to be grounded in strong cultural identity. And so that means we have to work with the parents. We have to work with community members and community elders. We have to work with schools and out of school time programs. We have to build a fortress of support around our children and build it in such a way that our children that we instill self-confidence, self-efficacy, equip them with skills to practice self-regulation, self-study, and self-mastery. And so this grant is supporting the work that we do that's tied to our literacy work. So we understand that literacy skills are actually the keys to unlock and form healthy African cultural identity. And so we're able to work with parents through an innovative program called Parent Power, Literacy and Advocacy Workshops that helps parents make critical connections between literacy and identity and the education that happens in homes. We're also able to work with our young children, getting them ready for school and helping them improve reading skills and reading levels and academic performance. We also are able to work with school teachers and out of school time program workers, sharing some of the lessons that we've learned from the children and families so that schools and programs can build cultural competencies in order to make sure that the work they do with our children is culturally responsive. So again, we're just so happy to be a part of this cohort, this portfolio of incredible programs that are lifting up the importance of culture. Culture is a resource that allows us to support families in doing their own work towards self-determination.
Wow, you all are amazing connectors, and what powerful connections you're making between families and all of these institutions that they relate to. May, describe the relationship between the Community Solutions Fund Advisory Council and the Minnesota Department of Health Community Health Equity Team. What was the role of the Community Health Equity Team, and what were some of the learnings on both sides?
Yes, so the Advisory Council really works closely with the health equity team to talk about how to better support our grantees. We call them change makers, because as you heard, they're making a lot of important changes in our communities. And particularly as we had to pivot during the COVID-19, public health crisis, we were just starting to review applications and we wanted to do site visits. There were all these hopes and we really had to change our methods, but we advocated for a lot of different things like flexibility around funding, looking at reporting, how does that work, how often, looking at work plans and budgets now that things had to pivot. And the health equity team really listened to our suggestions, helped us figure out how to make them happen. They couldn't take all of our suggestions because not everything is, so quick and easy. However, I think the council really tries hard to push when it's important. And we all have a variety of opinions. I'll say we're a very diverse group, even though we're all people of color and American Indians, we're not a monolith, definitely not. But I think we all have such a deep love for community and we want to make sure there's success in these programs. So we really look at how can it be more equitable or accessible. So anytime we push, there's a reason. And we learned that a lot can change in times of crisis. And I think the opportunities here is how can we make some of those flexibilities continue beyond kind of this moment? Because we know that, Black, Indigenous, and, people of color have not always been in a great position in this state before the public health crisis. So how can we lean into some of those possibilities as we continue moving forward?
That's such an important role, and I cannot imagine more important learnings than those. So Giovanni, as a grantee, let's start with you this time. How do you think those learnings affected you, your organization, and the people you serve? What differences, if any, did they make to your project?
Well, thank you for this question. As I listened to May talk about the push towards greater flexibility and how that lands for us is the underlying assumption is that there's a trust that community actually can solve its own problems, that the solutions are in community and have always been in community. And those solutions are not a one size fits all, because every community is different. But what we share together is that culture is the way that we practice solutions, the ways that we learn from our children and families. And so we really appreciate the flexibility because, again, it translates for us as a systems approach to learn how to actually put the power back where the power concerning our children actually lies, which is in community, cultural communities.
Wow, well said, Giovanni. Adi Kunz, what's been your experience as a grantee?
Our experience has been really new, I would say. When you look at the history of many Indigenous nations and our experience with government, it's not positive, right? There's been a lot of distrust, a lot of lying, a lot of scandals. And so something that we've often talked about is the space that's now being created is community, right? It's community based. As Giovanni was saying, we're getting into the heart of the work and accepting now that what we hold together is community. And I think that was the biggest thing that NDH had come in with the community solution funds, right? Is coming in such a way that we're working together. They're not researching us, they're not exploiting us. We're working together to help really create system change. And there's a lot of deep work that's happening. There's a lot of deep conversations happening with all partnering communities. And it's really been eye-opening at the possibilities, right? to break some of these barriers that we have between nations and between the communities, and create this level of communication where we can be open about things. You know, something that really stood out was our partners that we're working with MDH come to us and say, here's this guideline for a report, but how do you want to report it? Instead of that force-fed, here, write this 20-page document, right? We can communicate it in a different way. We can communicate it via video, storytelling, could write it if we wanted to, could have a meeting to discuss it. There's all this flexibility that was really welcomed. And I think that with that really shows that place where we can get to system change, right? When we start to listen to each other, we start to create different ways to communicate and accommodate and meet people where they're at. And that's why I'm really excited about this work and this partnership and everything and all the opportunities that we've had. Amigos.
Thank you, Arikuns. I think what you're saying is so important because every cultural community has its differences, and one size definitely does not fit all. So thanks so much for your perspective. May the Community Solutions Fund report makes several recommendations, and for our audience, those recommendations are on the screen. You can take a look. You can also link to those recommendations with a link to the report. What do you think is the intent behind the recommendations? Who are they for, and why are they being recommended?
So I really want to tie together what some of our change makers have talked about. You know, we are all different, but I think about it, all of us being part of a beloved community, right? If we really want to be inclusive, it's okay to say we're different. We have different skill sets. You know, some folks joining us here are from philanthropy or state agencies or your other fellow advocates. You know, how can we, you know, from all our different parts of life, what are we doing working towards how to be together in those differences? You know, how do we move from allyship to really being an accomplice? So the recommendations are very concrete, and I don't think they really just apply to Community Solutions program, you know, out of Department of Health. What can we do to center community solutions in other places? What would it look and feel like if that was really a trusted, you know, place, a trusted group of folks? You know, people have been here for hundreds and thousands of years before the colonizers came, right? There's a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of joy and love in our communities. So I really want to encourage everyone listening and participating today to think, you know, what tangible thing can you do in your sector, across sectors, to make sure that all our children are thriving, all of our communities are actually, you know, being able to make their own decisions about how they want to see their communities move forward. And so that's really what I encourage. And of course, I'll never leave without a pitch. Community Solutions grant program is a pilot. We really would love to see it full scale. I mean, we were only able to grant funding for 22 or 23 groups, but we had double the volume of applications. So the need is great. So think about in the future, you know, how can we scale up these kinds of projects moving forward?
Thanks so much, May. This is indeed a profound adventure that we're all taking together, and we hope that you will join us. All of you listening will join us. So, Advocacy, as a grantee, which of those recommendations do you think is particularly important to your organization, and why?
I think it's hard to narrow it down. When I look at the recommendations, I look at it as an overarching theme, right? When we're dissecting what's at the heart of everything, it's all of it, right? We need to support every community and listen to communities and take that community-based approach. You know, when we talk about making system change, we have to have a level of what's actually happening, what's actually changing. So we have to look at research in a way, but maybe that research comes differently, right? So we're looking at the wisdom of the communities and our elders, and making change with that knowledge and creating responsive practices and making sure that these spaces don't fall back into how they were, right? We're slowly chipping away at the wallpaper. You peel off a layer, there's another one down there, and you peel off a layer, there's another one down there to keep that motion and that movement forward. And so when you're thinking about these recommendations, it's really everything, right? It's we can't select and choose one thing. We have to continue to do the best we can and take all of this knowledge and move forward with it and make sure that we're talking to each community and knowing what works for them. And that's going to look drastically different depending where we are and who's where. And I think that this is the right step, right? So the community solution funds are asking these questions and having these recommendations and taking that step. And that's the first step, right? Is to acknowledge that something isn't right. Let's make these changes.
Atticus, I love what you're saying about community research and responsive practice. Yes, indeed. Giovanni, what is your experience? Which of these recommendations do you think is particularly important to your organization and why?
The recommendations that speak to the power and importance of our stories, that qualitative data piece is so important. Equally important is the lifting up action, community-based research, right? And so in the work that we do, we hear stories after stories about struggles, but also stories about how our families are overcoming those struggles. And very often we've been taught to diminish the power of our stories, or we by default just label ourselves as, storytelling is a cultural tradition. Yes, it is, but embedded in our stories is knowledge. And the purpose and the tradition of storytelling is to produce and pass on knowledges. And so for funders, for policymakers to really think broader about the power in those stories, there's wisdom, there's lessons, there's teaching practices, there's values embedded in the stories. So our policymakers must challenge themselves to embrace the power of stories. And at the same time, cultural communities, we have work to do to honor the power in our stories. Together, we then can broaden those solutions that exist in our community. And as our sister said, really lift up how the power of those stories can influence and inform broad-scale systemic changes.
Thank you so much, Giovanni, and how exciting. What an amazing journey. Thanks so much to all our panelists and to our audience for listening. I hope you've been inspired by what you've heard, that you will notice how interdependent we are and will join us in taking action to make Minnesota better for all of us. I encourage you to read the report and commit to taking at least 3 actions. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Betty, and all of our panelists for that insightful conversation. In listening to our panel of change makers, I am reminded of how important it is for all of us to reimagine systems that are intended to support the needs of all children and families. This conversation has highlighted the importance of community, culture, and identity, which are the cornerstones of healthy families. There is no community without equity and the ability to leverage the collective power that exists in the knowledge and traditions of people of diverse backgrounds. Identity is an emerging domain of child development that is essential to the self-actualization and emotional intelligence of children. This means that the future of our nation will be determined by how well systems embrace and integrate the cultural needs of every child. As the program is coming to an end, I just want to again thank Betty Emerita and our panel of change makers who are using radical imagination to cultivate systems that are inclusive and break down Eurocentric perspectives that are not designed to ensure that all children succeed. The Community Solutions Fund provides the flexibility organizations need to place culture and value at the center of our work with families and to develop new standards of success for a rapidly changing demographic. I want to reiterate how important it is for each of us to be listening well to community and acting now on key recommendations that have been shared today. Now, I'd like to turn it back to Tiffany and Carrie to close us out.
Thank you, Andre, and to all of our panelists for sharing your wisdom and the recommendations made. On behalf of the Start Early Funders Coalition, we'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. This is such an impressive community of early care and education advocates and experts. Nancy would be so proud. The potential benefits of supporting children's healthy development are so clear. It can bolster educational outcomes and ensure that all children in Minnesota have the opportunity for lifelong health and success. But it won't happen without the ongoing commitment of educators, advocates, and policymakers. We hope you all feel inspired to carry out that work after you leave here today.
I would like to thank George Latimer and family for joining us today. We appreciate our MC Andre Dukes and our presenters and panelists for sharing their insights with us. Congratulations again to all the awardees. A big thank you to the #Latimer 2021 Planning Committee, to the Start Early Funders Coalition members, and to the Greater Twin Cities United Way. Please join us as we work together to continue cultivating community. Commit to listening well and share with us on Twitter or comment on our Facebook page what actions you are going to take on behalf of Minnesota's youngest children. How will you act now?